I'm missing Leafs hockey, like a lot, okay? And before we get started today, I'll show you what I did this week. So I got 34 on my ankle. So yeah, that now exists. I already have a couple of other hockey tattoos, so this is not like the first one. I have 4 tattoos anyway, and yeah, so I decided spontaneously to go get 34 tattooed on my ankle, and I am obsessed with it. I absolutely love it. I got chirped on Twitter a little for it for some reason, as if it's not my body and what I choose to do with it is my own prerogative, but never mind. Some people didn't like it. That's okay. You don't have to have one. It's fine. I love it. I think it's great. No, I don't care if Austin changes his number. No, I don't care if Austin leaves and goes somewhere else. He will still be in the history books as AM34 of Toronto. I don't care. Anyway, that's not the topic of today's video. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, and if you're always here, thank you for sticking around. So for today's chat, we are going to talk about some potential player signings the Leafs can make in the off-season. I made a part 1 to what do the Leafs need to do next, where I talked about which existing players should stay, in my opinion, and which ones we should think about moving. So we're on to part 2 now, which is about what players we should think about acquiring. Now, I know that we don't have a lot of cap space, and I know that shifting some existing players is going to be difficult, such as Mrazek and perhaps Hall. However, these are just guys that I personally think would be a good asset to the Leafs if it could work in terms of trade and if we could actually afford them. So this is a little bit hypothetical. This is not me going into all the details of how they should go about acquiring these people. This is just my thoughts on maybe who they should be looking at. These are everybody I'm mentioning here. I've seen other people talk about, and I've seen people talk about a lot of different options, and these are just a few that I personally think might be a good thing to look at. So let's get started. So let's talk about a couple of defencemen, and the 2 that I've picked out here are both going to be free agents, so we don't have any kind of existing contracts to worry about, which is immediately a plus. I really think that depth within the D is something that we need to improve on, because I personally wouldn't be having the likes of Hall back. I mean, Muzzin, ideally, Muzzin has like a no trade clause, so the chances are he's going to still be with us next season, but he does take up quite a lot of cap space. But anyway, the first person I'm going to touch on is Robert Hagg. So, and I hope I'm saying that right. I get picked up on not saying things the same way as other people because of the accent, but if that's not how you say it, I apologise. So the 27-year-old 6'2" Swedish defenceman was drafted 41st overall by the Philadelphia Flyers in the 2nd round of the 2013 entry draft, but he spent last season split between Buffalo and Florida, and in 64 games he collected a total of 138 hits and 102 blocked shots. And these stats are the important ones because this is something the Leafs are definitely missing. In that matchup against Tampa, I definitely saw some area for improvement in terms of blocking shots, the same way that Tampa were. They were just a field of bodies in front of the goalie. Vasilevsky's an unreal goalie, but when you've got a bunch of bodies in front of you acting like an entire basically screen that are catching all the pucks, that's an incredible way to play, and it's something we should definitely be better at. And I feel like Hagg is potentially a really valuable asset in this area going by those stats. He's an unrestricted free agent. I feel like we could get him for a reasonable bargain that would fit in with the cap space, and he might add that little bit of physicality and blocking that we seem to be missing on the existing team. Also, his experience with Florida, despite their swift 2nd round exit this year, they were still obviously a very good team, and it's arguably true that their blue line is deeper than what the Leafs have right now. So if the price tag is right, I would definitely be considering him as an option to add to the Leafs roster next season. Next up is Colin Miller, who is a 29-year-old 6'1" Canadian, and he'll be a familiar name to Dubas and Keefe as he played in the OHL's Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and we know that Dubas likes to keep his connections strong with this organisation, so this could be a potential other move. He was selected by the LA Kings in the 5th round of the 2012 NHL entry draft, and he was with the Buffalo Sabres, but he had an untimely injury, I believe, during the trade deadline, which meant that he stayed there. But I believe at the time there was a potential possibility that the Leafs were looking at him then, so I wonder if they might jump on this now. Miller could be an upgrade on Justin Hall's position in the team currently. With 14 points in 38 games, he is a defenceman first and foremost, however he can also produce offensively when it's needed, so I just wonder if this might be a potential upgrade on the roster next season. I think the D is definitely, apart from goalies, which we'll get to at the end, I think D is more important than adding forwards. I feel like offensively we're pretty good, you know, especially if we're keeping the young core together. I think offensively we are pretty strong. It's often defensively and the depth of that lets us down. So those D-men were definitely priority. But let's touch on a couple of forwards that could be potentially looked at by the Leafs in the off-season. And the main one I'm going to talk about is Nick Paul. So obviously he was traded to Tampa recently by Ottawa, and in Game 7 he scored both goals which actually put us out of our playoff run. So the 27-year-old Canadian would be a welcome to Toronto's third line potentially, and he could actually replace and upgrade on Mikheyev's role because it's looking likely that he might leave this season. Mikheyev wanted moved out of Toronto before, and this might give him the opportunity to do so now that he's a free agent. And I feel like Nick Paul might be a good replacement and a slight upgrade to the team in that respect. He's also a very physical player, as well as being highly skilled and clearly able to score, as we saw. And I think he could be a really valuable asset to this team. Don't know the price tag, but I mean, potentially 2.5 million if we could have that space. If we've got the availability of that and we want to upgrade any forwards, that would be who I would be looking at the most. I know that also there's been talk about if like Nylander's moved or whatever, there might be a bigger sort of trade going on, so we could end up with somebody like JT Miller from the Canucks or Andre Palat also from Tampa, and they might be considered. However, you have to remember with all of these forwards I've just discussed, there's a huge price tag, and it's a huge price tag for an area that I'm not sure is the one that needs to be developed. I think we need depth. This is not really to do with depth. And I also think that we need a goalie, which is what we're moving on to next. So in terms of goalies that we should be looking at, I personally would like Jack Campbell to come back. But I know that we might not be able to offer him the money he wants. But at the same time, if we can't offer Jack the money, who else are we going to get that's good enough to start in net who we can afford? I just don't understand where an adequate replacement for the cost is going to come from if we don't get Jack. So I personally would be trying to get Jack on what I could. I'm not in charge, and it doesn't help that I adore Jack Campbell so much, so I definitely think I'm probably slightly biased, but at the same time Jack got us a lot further than what a lot of the other players did on the team at points, and he definitely made some great saves for us, you know, you can't deny it. Obviously I want to see Sjögren like in tandem with somebody good, and I would love to see the Campbell Sjögren thing and just keep going on. Personally, I'd like to see that be given a chance to flourish. Obviously Mrazek wasn't a signing that went as well as we hoped it was going to, and it's going to be tough to shift him to another team without retaining too much salary, which isn't going to free up enough room to sign a goal. The goalie thing is problematic and I can't see a clear solution to it. So I hope Dubas has got something special up his sleeve in this department, because I'm not quite sure where we go. I'm really lost on the goalie front, and it's annoying because it's the thing we need the most. If we don't have a good goalie, we're not even making playoffs next year, never mind getting out the first round. It's just not going to happen. So we're in a tough division, a really tough division. Goaltending is key. We're in a division that has Vasilevsky in it, among other amazing goaltenders. Like, we need to be competing on that level, and I'm just not sure how we afford it right now. But anyway, taking out the complete lack of solution that I have to the affordability, let's talk about a couple of goalies that I've seen mentioned, basically, that the Leafs might be looking at if after July 13th Jack goes elsewhere and he is no longer ours. So the first one is John Gibson. I'm doing this thing on Twitter right now where I send out trade questions of the day, and yesterday's trade question of the day was about whether Gibson would be an adequate replacement for Jack, and I didn't word it particularly well, but anyway, Gibson's on a 6.4 million contract still, so even if we got him, we'd be paying 6.4 million. Where are we getting that money from? And if we've got that money, why are we not giving it to Jack? I mean, I personally would still be taking Campbell over Gibson. We know Campbell's passion and dedication and his effort that he pours in. Gibson's a good goalie, I'm not denying that, but it's still a lot of money that we don't have. I'm not too sure how we could go about that, you know, but anyway, that's one option that I've seen discussed. And I also saw New York Islanders Varlamov being discussed if Campbell goes elsewhere. So the past season hasn't been his best, we've definitely not seen him at his top form. However, back in 2021, he obviously has some good playoff reputation, and it might be that boost that the Leafs need between the pipes in order to try and get us some playoff depth, which would be nice and is a priority. However, he is 34 years old, he's a veteran goaltender, so any contract would be pretty short term, so I can't imagine any sort of long term contract being given there. And not that this age is a tricky thing, because goalies are a tricky thing, and injury prone tendencies are bad. We've been through it with Freddie. Campbell struggled a little bit this season. All goalies struggle with injuries, it's just the nature of the job, right? But I am concerned about offering any sort of length of contract to a 34-year-old, but at the same time, where are the up and coming goalies that in that time you're going to find as a replacement if we did take him on? I'm not too sure. My priority would be trying to get Jack back. If you could take maybe just 4.5 would be a dream. 4.5 would be great, but I'm not sure that's going to happen, because out on the market I think he's going to find more than that. So, and you've got to take the money. It's, you know, I'm not going to begrudge any player taking a promotion and getting paid better. I would never, but I would love to keep Jack. So those are just a few of my thoughts on a couple defencemen, a couple forwards and a couple goalies that the Leafs could be looking at next season to try and improve their roster. But obviously the salary cap, as I've mentioned, is a real issue right now for us, but I'm very intrigued to see where we will go with this. So this was part 2 in my little series of where do the Leafs go next. I have a third video in the works for next week, so I will see you then. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to follow me on all my social medias. I will drop them all below, and any other relevant links I will also drop down below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week for more hockey chats from across the pond. Bye guys.